Hello, this is part two of the discussion on Gap 3. We've been talking up till now about the role of the employee in the process and the human resource elements related to that. But the other part of Gap 3 is the customer role. So let's have some discussion about customer role involved here. So what's important about that is that customers can be part of the co-creation or the delivery of the service itself. So if we involve them, especially in what the experience is that they expect and where it's going to be, that's how we end up designing it. That's where we go with it. We determine what those customer roles are. We're going to talk more about that. And today, with all the self-service technologies, with the way technology is operating and so on, you have the ultimate customer participation and where we use it and when we don't use it and so on. You know, we've got robots delivering room service to hotel rooms. We've got automated check-ins and all those kind of things happening in the process. So we've got all that to be considered in terms of the customer role and how they're going to use that. So we have to have some strategies to enhance that customer participation along the way. How do customers widen the gap? Well, lack of understanding of their roles. They don't know what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to be, where the line is supposed to be, where they have to be directed to when they're trying to find a meeting at a conference or anything of that nature. Not being willing or able to perform those roles. Sometimes people have a preference of where they expect to be and they want to be treated that way and they don't want to have to go through whatever process it is to get there. They just want to have that service or that gain that experience. No rewards for good performance. So if you create new technology and so on in the process, but you don't give them the advantage of, say, checking in early by doing an online check-in or choosing your own seat on the airline or whatever it may be, if you don't give them the reward of being able to do that, then why would they? Interfering with other customers is another factor that can happen here when two customers are competing for the same service, if you will, or at the same time. That can create some incompatibility. We saw that in the line for the coffee shop with Will Ferrell, and that example was competing against others trying to get to the front with his video card. Incompatible market segments. I use the example, I think I used it in here before. If I didn't, I'll use it again, of the Shangri-La Singapore. That's essentially three different buildings. The tower wing, which is the main portion of the hotel, the garden wing, which is more of the resort aspect, and the valley wing, which is the VIP area. In the early days of that hotel, the Japanese market was critical. Japanese business travelers typically don't stay where Japanese tour groups come, yet we got both in that hotel. And the reason we did is we had a separate check-in area for the tour groups, the tower is where they stayed, and the valley wing, you got all those separate amenities for the business traveler. They could come and go with their own separate entrance and so on. Therefore, they shared the same space very effectively. So in defining these customer roles, they could be part of the productive resources. So I go to the automated keys that you have today in Hilton, and Marriott is doing that in the hotel industry, for example, where you can check yourself in. You don't really even have to go to the front desk anymore, so you can be more productive on it. You can get people to check in ahead for your airlines or choose your seat on the airline and where you're going to be. Those are ways to make the customer more productive so that they know where they're going when they get on the plane, for example, and where their seat's going to be, even choosing their meals beforehand if you happen to be on a flight that has meals. Contributors to the service quality and satisfaction. I mean, we have an interaction of people here, so how do we interact with the service provider, with the employee on the other side? How do we communicate with each other in terms of what we're doing there? And then, of course, we have this role of competitors, and how do we make sure that we don't have people conflicting with each other for the same aspect of it when we figure out how we get into line or where we go and what we do in that process, and how do we make that compatible in terms of avoiding any potential conflicts. So if we look at the productive resource of the customer, we think about them as a partial employee, then we see them contributing to the effort, time, and the resources of producing the process. So they should be involved in it. They should be making comments about it. We should be taking their comments and their input and the data we get from them to be able to refine and rework our systems so that they're effective for them. Customer inputs do affect the organization's productivity. Sometimes we have to make sure we do it at the right time. So we ask the customer at the right time, right place, and not necessarily hold other people up as a result of it. We want to find out from them, but we don't want to make that affect others in terms of that. So a key issue here is, then should the customer role be expanded or reduced? Do we want them more involved or less involved? If we want them more involved, then we really have to educate them more. So technology is forcing us in that direction, and I think that's probably the direction most people are going to, rather than reducing, as opposed to actually giving information to even help pamper and do the VIP treatment, for example, for a guest. Customers contribute to the service quality and satisfaction. Okay? On the good side of it, they perform their job effectively. You have satisfied situations by working with the service provider. You can get a satisfied situation. The quality of the service they receive, by asking questions, by taking responsibility for their own satisfaction, by complaining when the service is failure. We've discussed that before. The importance of trying to get the customer to actually tell us what's wrong and go through that process, because we're going to keep a lot more customers by doing it that way. On the other hand, we've got the situation of customers can also detract from satisfaction. Disruptive behaviors, excessive crowding situations can cause problems, or incompatible needs. Different people have different timescales. You've got kids with you. You have to do things on a different level than if you don't. Other customers can also enhance the satisfaction, right? Just by their presence. It may make you feel more comfortable because you can see that other people are going through the same thing. They can be even giving you direction if they've gone through it before. Socializing and friendships. Sometimes when we stand in these lines at places like Disney and other places, that's where we meet other people. We discuss other things. We find out where other people are from. So they can act as a role of an assistant, teacher, supporter. All those various roles are possible. So if you put this into a schematic, I'll talk a little bit more detail about each one of these. You have to define the customer job. You have to recruit, educate, and reward the right customers, and then you have to manage the customer mix. So more specifically, defining customer roles, how they help themselves, how they help others, how they promote the company, posting reviews, get them to say nice things about us after they've been there. Recruit, educate, reward customers. Find the right customers. That's it. Right customers, right time, right place. That's what we need. Educate, train those customers, how they have to do the job effectively, whatever their role is, and reward them for their contributions. Maybe it's even loyalty points, or it's giving you a stamp each time you come in to give you a free item, whatever it is, the next time back. And avoid negative outcomes of inappropriate customer participation. So, make sure that we don't have people who aren't sure what they're going to do and end up complaining in front of others. And then again, like I said before in the Shangri-La example, managing that customer mix, making sure that you've got the right people not interacting with people who will be conflicting in their interest. Now, customers as competitors. Customers, may compete for that same service, both internal exchange and external exchange issues. So we have factors of our expertise capacity. Do we have enough people that know the job they're supposed to be doing to handle the people that are coming at that time? Resource capacity. How many, talk about hotels and guest rooms and front desk agents to check those people in. This is Vegas all over, right? How do you get people into the rooms effectively when you've got so many rooms and so many people checking in and checking out? Time capacity, in terms of how much time people want, with the wait strategies we've talked about before. Economic rewards, psychic rewards, having trust and control. All these are factors that affect the customers as a potential competitor situation. So I'll read this because I think it's an important aspect of compatibility. A process of first attracting homogeneous customers to the service environment, then actively managing both the physical environment, servicescape if you will, and the customer-to-customer encounters in such a way as to enhance satisfying encounters and minimizing dissatisfactions. So that relates to the customer-to-customer now, not just the employee-to-customer that we've been talking about up till this point. This chart's one I'm not going to go through in detail, but if you just take an example for you, if you go down the right-hand side and you look at the second item, full service restaurants, cocktail lounges, so on, we'll go over the far left. Verbal interaction takes place among customers, right? You're sitting at the bar, you're talking to other people that are there. How's that situation structured? How is that put together to make sure that it's compatible? Look at the last one on the list down there on the far right-hand side. You have golf courses, hospitals, retirement communities, airplanes. Over on the left, you see customers are expected to share time, space, and service, even utensils with each other. In a restaurant, certainly, how are we going to handle that? So, in summary, in terms of gap 3, we talked about the employee and the customer and the company interaction, the triangle between all of them. I think that's a critical element to understand how each interrelates, and the fact that the employee is turning to the customer here and not just the company. Human resource strategies, the wheel, in terms of its elements of delivering service, about how we hire, how we retain, how we train, how we educate, and so on in the process. This is a critical element to understanding, and I think a beautiful tool. And then lastly, we talked about the customer role and what the customer role is in the process. So that completes our discussion of Gap 2. Gap 3. I get it right yet. Gap 3.